In this episode of the Wealth Guide podcast, we continue our conversation with Anja Pannek, CEO of the Mortgage and Finance Association of Australia. We'll explore how the MFAA plays a pivotal role in supporting mortgage brokers through advocacy, professional development, and ensuring high standards of practices across the industry. Anja will delve into the various initiatives and resources the MFAA provides to help brokers thrive in a competitive market and how technological advancements are creating new efficiencies and benefits for mortgage brokers and clients alike. Whether you're a mortgage broker, a homeowner, or just curious about the future of the industry, this episode offers valuable insights into the evolving landscape of mortgage broking in Australia. So without any further ado, let's dive into today's episode. Anja, thank you for joining us. Welcome to part 2 of our podcast. I was hoping you could tell me a little bit about how the MFAA looks to support mortgage brokers, and if you could maybe elaborate on some of the key initiatives that you use there.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks once again for having me back. Really looking forward to the next 30, 40 minutes. So the MFAA, we're the peak industry body for mortgage and finance brokers. We have at present over 15,500 members across the country, and 97% of our members are mortgage brokers working each and every single day with their clients. Our vision at the MFAA is to elevate the mortgage and finance broking profession. It's about driving innovation and, importantly, positive financial outcomes for Australians. And the way that we actually go about doing this is through, we want to empower our members so they can prosper and thrive, because at the end of the day, the role that they play ensures that Australians can benefit from choice and competition. Now, that's working with a mortgage broker or working with a finance broker to get access to credit overall. So our approach, and this is really important to call together because it filters through all of the initiatives that we do, is we take a whole of industry approach at the MFAA. And what I mean by that is that we work extensively with our broker members. We've got forums, we hold roundtables right across the country, but our membership base also comprises lenders, majors, second-tier, customer-owned banks, regionals. It also includes aggregators, all of the major aggregators, some of the smaller aggregation, number of the smaller aggregation groups as well, and other service providers to industry. I think when you're trying to solve or look for solutions, you need all those voices at the table. There's everyone's interested in trying to get the right outcome. If your client is the broker, but at the end of the day, if we put the consumer, the borrower, or the business owner right at the centre, and then figure out how we can all work together to create an environment that works the best. So where we really focus, as you would expect as an association, is around education, professional development. It's around promotion, and very importantly around advocacy, and our role advocating on behalf of our members with government, with key stakeholders, with consumer groups overall. And I'm happy to unpack a whole lot of that, because there is a lot in that overall.
Yeah. And I suppose, Ray, maybe a question for you is, how does a financial planner complement in that relationship, especially with an association and a mortgage broker? Because we talk a lot about how customers should look to place a team of financial service professionals around them to ensure that their needs are met from multiple facets. So I'm keen to sort of understand, well, what's that relationship like?
So the relationship is very well sort of intertwined in a way where we sort of help the mortgage brokers a lot with the basic sort of side of stuff. There's obviously an element where the brokers can't give advice on financial planning elements. So we provide a lot of coaching, mostly around, let's just say, around the SMSF side. What should you say? What should you not say? What are sort of the complexities around the SMSF lending side, perhaps? How should you approach budgeting? How should you approach looking at a client's holistic position? We're talking about the protection of some of the assets, whether it be the insurances in the form of death, disability, income protection. So there's a variety of different facets that we look at from that perspective, and help out the brokers. Again, it comes back to the education and sort of training on that part.
Yeah, for sure. It's at the end of the day, it's all about how we can increase the financial literacy and place the customer at the centre, if anything, as well. Anja, we talked a little bit about the upcoming Senate inquiry, and I'm keen to understand how the MFAA acts as an advocate for its members, to act as a voice in the interest of the mortgage brokers, both at that legislative level and at the industry level as well.
Advocacy is about building and maintaining relationships with key stakeholders. I think a core part of how we go about our advocacy is the approach I just mentioned that we use at the MFAA. We take a whole of industry approach. Now, we look to get all the voices at the table. It's not to get consensus, it's to get perspective. So when we work towards proposed solutions, they're not in isolation. It takes many parts of the industry to deliver a solution for the end client, and you need to consider all aspects of that when you're looking at regulatory change or how to propose to respond to regulatory change. What we run at the MFAA, just as a further extension of that, is we run member roundtables. We go out with surveys to capture the voice of our members. We also run national forums under strict anti-competition law protocol, where we bring lenders together to talk about where our activities are focused and get their views on where are there opportunities to lean into. So it's a feedback loop as well, and share the activities. We do that likewise with aggregators, and we actually run a national regulatory and compliance forum, which looks at thematics across industry. And that's a real key vehicle for us to respond to inquiries as well and propose changes to regulation overall. So when it comes to advocacy, then you take it up a level. And it's how you work with government, consumer groups, key stakeholders overall. We also work very closely with, so we work with ACCC, AFCA, the Ombudsman for Financial Services, ASIC. So we have a regular cadence where we catch up with them, we share our insights, and we get insights from them in terms of what are they seeing, what are they thinking about planning, where do they have an interest in the industry. You've got to have that ongoing dialogue to educate and inform and also get ahead of the curve. What I say often is, I never want this industry to be in a position where the first time I hear about some form of inquiry or review is when I pick up the Fin Review. The first thing I want to know is that we have been working with the relevant stakeholder group and helping inform a very fact-based dialogue about actually what is industry doing, where is it at. And a key example of that is we worked with Treasury through, I think it was 3 or 4 months of activity. Through working with our members, we ran roundtables right across the country looking at the loan discharge process, which was pretty problematic during the refinancing frenzy of 2023. We worked with lenders and other service providers to say, how much is this actually costing people? Where are there real blockers and friction in the process? Now, we did that, and we were advocating for the government to step in and make a number of changes. Yeah. But it was a long conversation, actually one that started in 2020. And then what we saw in December is Chalmers, the Treasurer, announced that he would be revisiting a number of elements of the discharge process. Yep. That is actually, if you think about it, that's a short period of targeted advocacy with set outcomes. Some of the things we do can take years, like 4 or 5, 10 years overall. The way that I really try and boil down how and what we focus on, it comes across 5 categories. How do we ensure regulation is fit for purpose? Regulation can be a clunky instrument. To ensure that regulatory costs are appropriate. Mortgage brokers cause negligible harm to consumers, and it should be reflected in any ASIC levies. We look at opportunities to strengthen the industry through regulation. We look at opportunities to innovate. Open banking, CDR is a very clear example. Yep. We've been very strong on the opportunity there. And then we look at sustainability. This is an industry we want to see around for decades to come as well. So it's really, as we look across all of those, how do we balance our perspective, engagement, voice overall with all of those key stakeholders.
Yeah, and there's a few points that I really wanted to touch on there as well, because you mentioned that you really need to get ahead of the curve as an association. And I feel that's really important to have a prepared state to conduct a change impact assessment and say, oh, okay, well, how are we going to address this change? Rather than, like you said, having a reactionary approach and then just looking at it in the fin review as well. So I think that's great. I think that's very important as well, to act as an advocate on behalf of your brokers. If you can describe for me a little bit about what the MFAA does in a professional development perspective for the mortgage brokers, because, in the ever-changing financial services landscape, how do you look to upskill your mortgage brokers?
Professional development and education is absolutely critical for this industry, as I know it is in financial planning. We have the highest standards when it comes to professional education more broadly in the mortgage and finance broking industry, and I'm incredibly proud of that. The way that I sort of reflect on it, and I know this is bringing in another profession, but I trained as an accountant. I went to uni. I went and did my PY. I came out of uni. Yes, I'd done some textbook learning, but it didn't really come to life for me until I was hands on the job and working with others. But even beyond doing that and then further education through my PY, my professional year, I still maintained my investment in my professional development because, and this is now stepping back to the mortgage broking industry, mortgage brokers work in such an incredibly dynamic environment. Products change, lenders' credit risk appetite change, the economy changes, every client is different. Innovation changes, new product sets, regulation changes. So you've got to stay on top of all of this so you can be the best you can be in terms of working with your clients. We do require the diploma, and I see that as it's getting an understanding of what you need to know. We've got mentoring standards, which have been in industry now for over a year, just really to up the on-the-job training and expectations, because mentoring's key to being a broker. We do require 30 hours CPD. And what we've also done, and this is only, I think it's about a month or so old, we've just recently gone from biannual compliance refreshers for all of our members to annual. So on an annual basis, all of our members will undertake a compliance refresher, which just demonstrates they're across the core elements of AML, CTF, BID, privacy, and things like cybersecurity. Because we operate in this sort of whole of industry approach, what it helps us to do is actually stay ahead of where do we see learning opportunities. Brokers work within a principle-based legislative framework, best interest duty, responsible lending. That means there's no sort of rule book.
No.
Right? Yeah. So best interest duty we've found has been, you've had to almost interpret it in different ways as the economic environment has changed over the last little while. So how do we ensure that our members are, really getting the education they need? And that's what we're there to do. We're there to support them in that way so they can stay agile and feel really, confident that they know what they need to know in the environment that they're operating in.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. It's great to hear, because I really feel that there's that element of train the trainer aspect, because especially if everyday Australians are relying on their mortgage broker to teach them or bring up those levels of financial literacy, we need to look at the education standards, or how we're continually professionally developing these mortgage brokers as well. And I feel it's similar to financial planning aspects as well, and even the relationship between a financial planner and a mortgage broker, because I know, Ray, that we work a lot with mortgage brokers to help them meet their best interest duty and identify advice needs, or even help mitigate potential financial risks that they might face. Or what's that conversation like?
To Anja's point, look, when the brokers are working with a whole of industry sort of knowledge, right? So essentially what they need to know the legal aspect. They need to know some of the economic changes that are about to come and how will it impact on the end consumer, whether it be the interest rates, whether it be changes to the tax rates. All of these sort of stuff have an impact. So what we try to best do with our brokers is to sort of educate them around a variety of different conversations in those pieces, whether it be tax planning, superannuation, insurances, and sort of how you can sort of help customers with some of these strategies and sort of add value to the conversation piece.
Yeah, no, I really feel that relationship between a mortgage broker and a financial planner will only enhance the end result to the client as well. Now, Anja, we talked a little bit about some of the the uplifted education standards that the MFAA have and the number of CPD hours that they have, but what other measures are in place to ensure brokers maintain the highest level of standards of practice?
Absolutely, it's ongoing professional education. I think what we've seen across the mortgage and finance broking industry is a real and significant shift over the last couple of decades where engagement, at multiple levels, if it's the broker working with their aggregator, the broker working with lenders, there's a real education focus on what do you need to know. More recently, what we've seen is that, and I say more recently, it's probably been in the last 5-10 years, it's probably gone up a level as well around brokers running their business really effectively. And the reason for that is obviously makes sense. If you're running your business really well, you can decide how much time you can spend on working with your clients, working on the business, working in the business, process improvement, efficiency. What else can you do in terms of the client experience? There's no one I talk to in this industry that doesn't, all of these interactions that we see where brokers go to PD days, they go to conferences, it's anchored in uplifting their education and their standards of practice. I think there's another element of this when it comes to high standards of practice, and I'm going to go a little bit off script here if I can, and that's the importance of personal resilience. I've been at a number of conferences very recently, and it's fantastic to see the education effort that's being put into helping brokers with their personal resilience, because this is it can be pretty tough and sometimes really lonely being a broker as well. And that's a key part of it as well, because resilience holds all of us in very good stead when things get tough and things sometimes don't work out. And that's, the reality of the world that we live in.
Yeah, for sure. I really feel as well, there were a lot of elements that you discussed there, that it's really important for members or mortgage brokers and clients to really understand the member value proposition statement as well that you touched on there, and placing the customer centric as well. All these have a meaningful benefit to the end client as well, Ray, and maybe we can touch on a little bit about that meaningful benefit that we talked about. We talked about it a fair bit throughout both parts about how we're increasing the financial literacy of everyday Australians, placing the clients in a better position. But what else do you feel is that meaningful benefit that's going to end up with the client?
So look, Gianni, for the client, obviously they're getting the highest level of service. I think that's the key important part. Whether it be from the broker or financial planner, they're getting the highest level of service. The end consumer is educated as to what their steps of different stages of their lifestyle planning are. And essentially it sort of differentiates the broker when they're about to provide those services from their peers. So I think it's key important part that obviously when you sort of helping client with those key part of lifestyle changes, some of these translate into a meaningful conversation with the client, and essentially then helping the client. Yeah,
and ultimately placing the client centric to that team of professionals is only going to have a better outcome for everybody.
Because the customer doesn't know, when the customer comes to see a broker, when they're sort of doing their fact find with them, the customer is expecting going, well, you might be able to help me out with this, with the super side, with the insurance side, because I'm about to take on a mortgage, with the tax side, or is there someone that you can put me in touch with? Because customer doesn't necessarily want to go and repeat that conversation over and over again.
100%. It's sort of like taking your car, to use a silly analogy, to take your car to a mechanic. You don't know what's wrong with your car, but as soon as the mechanic looks under the hood, they identify all the issues, and ultimately they help you meet your goals, which is the longevity of your drive. So I think at the end of the day, that's why customers come to a financial service professional as well. Today's episode of the Wealth Guide podcast is proudly sponsored by Ryker Capital. In a world full of financial uncertainties, Ryker Capital understand the importance of safeguarding your lifestyle and the well-being of your loved ones. That's why we're committed to providing you with personally tailored insurance plans and financial advice that aligns with your unique needs and goals. Ryker Capital is your guide in the complex world of superannuation and retirement planning. Our team of experts are dedicated to helping you navigate these complexities with ease and confidence. We're here to empower you with the knowledge and strategies you need to build wealth and secure your future. At Ryker Capital, we offer a comprehensive range of services designed to optimize your superannuation. We work closely with you to determine the best contribution strategy, regularly review your superannuation fund, set achievable financial goals. Our coaching and consulting services ensure your financial plan stays on track with regular reviews to adjust to your changing circumstances and aspirations. Don't leave your financial future to chance. Take control today with Ryker Capital. Contact us for an obligation-free discussion about your financial plan by calling us on 1300 179 537. Let us help you secure your finances because you deserve it. Ryker Capital, your trusted partner in financial success. Moving into a very interesting time with the advancement of technology as well, Anja, and I wanted to get an understanding of how the MFAA is leveraging these changes in technology to allow for those greater efficiencies that you mentioned as well, and productivity to better service the client and ultimately help out mortgage brokers with their business as well.
My opening comment is that technology is nothing new for brokers. I think if the industry has evolved from many, or not so many, a few decades ago, taking the application or faxing the application into a lender, to technology just being a really integral part of the process in terms of how a broker collects information, gets privacy, gets various consents from their client, verifies their living expenses, understands their needs, communicates, markets, and keeps in contact with their client overall. The difference now that we find ourselves in, and not just because it's a buzzword, but it's a reality, is the emergence of artificial intelligence, in particular like large language models and generative AI. Many of the big tech shifts that have come through in industry, in my mind, have come about because of significant investment by some of the larger players in industry. We know banks are always seeking to find productivity gains, digitisation of their lending processes. Aggregators have continued to invest significantly in their aggregator CRMs and systems to support their brokers. We've got lodgement in industry as well. I think we're at a position in the mortgage and finance broking industry where, unlike in the past where you had to wait for the tech drops, you can stand back as a broker and you have a really good look at what is my business and what do I want it to be? Where do I see opportunities to improve productivity and adapt different technologies, because it is so accessible. It is really, really accessible with the tools out there when it comes to artificial intelligence. So this is something at the MFAA we started looking at earlier this year, and in terms of understanding our members' perspectives, we went around the country and we held roundtables right around the country, also with our regional members, to get their perspectives on, hey, it's not just a buzzword, talk to us about AI. And I can unpack, I'll unpack some of those themes as well for listeners. Where that landed us was the publication of our first research paper on the topic of AI. And it's entitled Embracing the Future, the Safe and Ethical Use of Artificial Intelligence in the Mortgage and Finance Broking Industry. It's a piece of work. My team, I know they're incredibly proud of the work they've done in this space. It was endorsed by the government's National AI Centre. And what it does is it really helps brokers in a very simple way actually have a think about, how can I go about this? Where is the opportunity? We spoke to members across the whole spectrum of adopting artificial intelligence in their businesses. Some of our members had completely embraced it and was starting to deal with large language model development where the whole client experience was through AI.
Wow.
At the other end of the spectrum, we had brokers that were like, I know I should probably have a look at it, but I'm not quite sure what it is and how do I think about it. So the research paper, again, it's available on our website, steps through member feedback, what we observed. It provides an overlay of the regulatory environment that mortgage and finance brokers operate in, because there's still privacy, there's still,
I was going to mention that,
copyright, personal data. How do you think about all these things as you're thinking about adopting AI? We've got a very simple checklist as well that people can go through, which is practical. And the other thing we did in developing this was we really leveraged off the Australian government's 8 AI ethical principles. Do we need more regulation when it comes to AI? This is already a heavily regulated industry. So we tried to connect the regulatory environment that brokers operate in with this huge opportunity that we see coming.
Mm-hmm.
For as long as I think I've worked in this industry, some people have been worried about technology and what it would do to broking. And I think this next sort of technology that we've seen come about, you get people worried. It's like, oh my God, am I going to, be done out of a job, or, what will happen? The way that I see this is, I think this is going to be a game changer for brokers, because you can embrace technology in the way that you want it to. It really puts the ability for you to get rid of those mundane tasks, to speed up the processing time, like, with all the stuff that you've been doing. You know what you get to do? You get to spend time with your clients.
Exactly.
And do you know what clients love doing? Spending time with you.
Yeah.
It's that very human interaction that's at the core of the mortgage value proposition. So I think this is going to be, I say game changer, that sounds like a really big statement, but I think going eyes wide open, safe, ethical use of this type of technology, how you adapt to it, how you get interested in it, explore it as a broker, it's just going to help you spend more time with your clients.
And I think early adopters will definitely benefit out of that. They'll be able to elevate their practice to another level. And especially when you look at it from a financial planning perspective, from data sharing to providing personalised recommendation, automation of some of the routine tasks that you do, enhanced communication, even predictive analysis to go, well, the customer's just about to go through a life shift stage. Here's something they should be talking about. So I think enhancing some of the AI projects that are coming on is quite fantastic.
Yeah, and it's such a big space. What we're seeing, there's a number of tools that we called out in our paper that brokers are using. There was this, I have so many fantastic recollections of doing the round tables, because we had some members saying, oh, no, I've not used artificial intelligence. Now, outside of generative AI, if you go back to machine learning, we had other people in the round table say, well, you're actually using it already within your aggregator software, because it's doing some of the product sort of search selection.
Comparisons.
So I think it is all there. What we will see, I think, in the next 2 to 3 years at an increasing rate is, because there are so many different data sources that brokers need to use, there is a lot of mundane tasks there. Ray, the predictive analysis that you're seeing, I think we'll see products come to market that will greatly help brokers around that. How do I get across everything I need to know and then apply my expertise, my experience to support my client and guide them through that?
But did MFAA had any concerns around the privacy side, Anja?
Absolutely, yeah. So we didn't have concerns around privacy, but I think what happened through the course of these round tables, people really wanted to understand what the guardrails were working with large language models, and the one that we traditionally go to is ChatGPT. So you've got to understand your obligations when it comes to dealing with your client data. So you cannot, in any instance, put any of your client data in a public large language model.
Right.
And we've made that very, very clear in the white paper and in the framework as well.
Fantastic.
First, stop, think. I think the first thing when it comes to adopting AI is you've actually got to understand what you want to use it for. Start small. Don't put any client data in any system. With any system you're using, you always need to stop and ask a few questions around, where does the data go? Do not put any client data in. I'm just going to say that for you. Do not put any client data in. Understand how it's used, if it's a closed model, if it's used more generally. You need to understand how the outputs are produced. Having technology to assist you in your job does not in any way reduce your obligations under law. At the end of the day, it's you as a human who are giving recommendations, whether you're a planner, whether you're a mortgage broker, you are bound. It's not the application that is bound as well. So, we reinforced things around privacy. We reinforced commercial data, if you're working with lenders, commercially sensitive data, you cannot take that data and put it in ChatGPT because it makes your job easier. So it's just an awareness of that as well. There's something else that couples very closely with use of AI and technology more broadly, and that's cybersecurity, as we all know.
Yeah.
So just the importance of whatever you use, because some of the new products and tools, they can be very sort of plug-in in nature. You use data, you transfer it from one part of your desktop. I sound like I know what I'm talking about, but I'm basic level when it comes to a lot of this stuff, and then you'll put it into another system. I think whatever you choose to adopt from a technology stack perspective as a broker in your office, always look at it through the lens of cybersecurity.
Yep.
Cybersecurity is the first form of defense that every single person who's dealing with client information, every broker, everyone who is, professional needs to consider. Have your MFAA, make sure you use, really don't use your standard birth date and name of your dog as a password. All of these questions you need to be asking as well in conjunction with that.
I've got to change my password. But
that's the moral of the story.
Change it from password to something else. Yeah. So look, on my perspective, I'll give 2 cents. AI is a tool at the end of the day, and tools can be used for good or bad. But ultimately, what in this setting, what we want a tool to do is reduce the turnaround time of certain items, processes, reduce the touch time of certain processes as well for both the financial service professional and the client, and then ultimately provide more value to the client, because the client at the end of the day wants, like you said, Anja, wants to spend more time with their mortgage broker or their financial planner at the end of the day, because that's their source of learning, if anything. So any tool that can provide more of that value add is only going to be a benefit to the client as well. Yes, there are inherent risks with certain tools or even data security issues that we need to monitor closely. And that being said, we should take steps forward to safeguard ourselves and the client, but also move forward in a more innovative approach. And if anything, we're going to change the financial services landscape with these new tools as well. Is that where you see the end benefit for customers being, like just being able to spend more time with their broker, or the mortgage broker being able to add more value to the client at the end of the day?
Absolutely. And I spoke about moments of magic when we did our roundtables, and some of the things our members said to us that, they see a future which is where the work is AI enabled or AI enhanced, but it is very human centric, and it is the broker as a person dealing with their client, because that's the relationship. That's where the value is created. That's how the trust is created. Understanding as well. And big financial decisions in life, I think there'll always be some percentage of the population that can do things themselves, and they feel very confident with it as well. But for the vast majority of people, if they're very early, we spoke in our last podcast around people depending on where they are in their home buying journey, where they are in their financial life journey as well. Brokers can just really sort of focusing on what the needs are at that point in time and spending more time earlier in the process, helping as clients, start to mature. Maybe they want to, from a financial perspective, they want to upgrade, they want to refinance, they want to downsize, all those different sort of stages. Those decisions aren't easy, and that's why you seek out an expert. That's why you want to eyeball someone and say, hold on a second, should I be doing this or this? Or what are the implications for me further down the track? Help me make the best possible decision overall. So I think it's really important that brokers are open to the possibility of AI, but it all comes down to spending more time with your clients and who, what broker doesn't want to spend more time with their clients as well?
And if anything, they can reinvest that into seeing more clients as well, because they've got that soft dollar benefit as well. But even in our practice, we're seeing that, Ray, from experience, I know that clients want to see you face to face because they want to build on that rapport. Like, we want to get away from Teams meeting. I think COVID is long gone now, where we don't need to, do video conference or Zoom meetings anymore. But clients want to be face to face because they have that rapport with you. And that's part of the customer service, if anything.
Absolutely. But I think what it has really helped in our side of the practice was more around the education side. So the education tools that sort of it provides from an AI perspective gives customer that end-to-end education on the strategy side, but how does that relate to them specifically? It's more at a person-to-person level when you sort of really sit down with the client and get to know their future goals, their current goals, what do they want to do with their kids, so on and so forth. So those kind of things, they need face-to-face interaction. That's where the magic happens. That's where you build rapport with your clients.
Yeah, and I don't know, very recently I was speaking to some members and they said, oh my goodness, you would not believe what happened to me today. I had a vanilla borrower. Like they had a PAYG 80% dead simple borrower. And I was in a conversation with other brokers as well. And they're like, you're kidding, you found one. The reality is
it's a unicorn.
It almost felt like the unicorn of clients. They're like, I just can't believe it happened. I've finally got one. The reality is no client is the same. They all have individual needs, and that takes time to really understand what they need and how a broker can help that client. And then you layer on that financial circumstances change, people's lifestyle, their lives change, their jobs change, what they want changes over time as well. So and that's why I think, again, if you think about that sort of real human-to-human contact, why it's so important and why I'm incredibly optimistic around the future of this industry because of the value it creates for Australians.
I'm really excited to see what some of the changes that's going to bring into CRM for most of the aggregators and how they will really sort of enhance the steps for the broker.
Yeah. Look, I'm excited for the works for that space going forward as well, and even just how it can help financial services professionals ultimately increase the financial literacy of everyday Australians, which is, I feel, the end goal, if anything. Anja, we've come to the conclusion of our podcast. Really appreciate your time. What have you got on your plate coming up?
So we are doubling down in terms of preparing our submission to the home ownership inquiry. That'll be our real key focus because the submission is due at the end of September, and then we'll be talking to our members around our key focus areas with that. And then, one of the best parts of my job is getting out, talking to our members. So I've got quite a few trips and conferences coming up where we get to talk about where we're focused at the MFAA and how we're supporting our members with the great work that they do.
Wonderful.
Awesome work. Thanks again for your time.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
The information provided in this podcast is for general information purposes only and should not be considered as personal advice. Always consult with a qualified professional or expert in the relevant field for personalised advice tailored to your specific situation.
If you enjoy the content we bring you on the Wealth Guide podcast, we'd love for you to subscribe and share with your community. Let's grow this community together and make financial literacy accessible to all.